All right, everyone. Well, welcome to our alumni panel. I'm really excited to have with me here 3 alums from the School of Social Work that we'll be having the pleasure of hearing from. I am Marianne Dixis, the Director of Student Affairs at the Rutgers School of Social Work and an Associate Professor of Teaching. In my role, I advise students and I plan a lot of the student events and oversee the GSA. I always stay in touch with alums, so it's always exciting to hear where they are, what they're doing. And often in my role as an advisor, many students ask, where are the graduates? What can our potential career tracks be? How do I even think about that? What are some things I should be thinking about in the program? And so I think this is a great opportunity to hear from some of the graduates. The way that we have this program set up is that there will be an opportunity for me to ask some questions to each of the panelists. They will each have a chance to respond. And then in the Q&A section, probably in the Q&A section, because so it's easier for me to manage, feel free to type any questions you have for the panelists. You can also raise your hand if you want to ask a question aloud, and we'll allow you to speak and engage verbally if that's how you choose. We are recording this event. We will make the link available to all of you and also to students who are unable to attend today. So thank you all for being here. We have 3 amazing graduates with us today. I have the pleasure of introducing Kaysie Getty. Kaysie received her MSW in 2018. She's a New Jersey native and a child welfare expert of the foster care system. She's currently working at the Department of Children and Families, the Office of Family Voice, as a youth programming advisor. In addition to her work with DCF, Kaysie is the founder of the So You Educated LLC, a company that provides blue handmade souls to young people and adults in and from foster care that graduate from college. So it sounds like Kaysie is definitely busy and doing a lot to stay engaged. So thank you for being with us here today, Kaysie. I'd also like to introduce Nicole McCarthy, who graduated from the Rutgers School of Social Work in 2016. She started her career as a case manager working with homeless youth at Covenant House. She's a licensed clinical social worker and currently a care manager supervisor with Circle of Care for Children and Families of Passaic County. Additionally, Nicole works as an intensive in-community clinician, providing in-home individual and family therapy for children and families to the New Jersey Children's System of Care. Nicole, thank you for being with us today. And as you can see, our graduates are all busy. It's not uncommon to hear social workers doing multiple things, not just having kind of one full-time job, which is so exciting as well. And last, but certainly not least, we have with us Janiece Moore, who completed her MSW in 2016. I have the pleasure of saying that she was the first graduating cohort in cohort 1 of the Rutgers online MSW program. So yay, we're glad you're here with us. She's a bilingual licensed school social worker in Anderson, South Carolina, who was born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. She's currently pursuing her doctorate of social work for DSW from Simmons University. So what an impressive panel we have. So thank you all for being here. Any welcoming hello remarks you want to make before we get started? Yeah, just waves. Zoom is kind of fun like that, right? All right, so let's get started. We have quite a few people with us already, and I'm sure others will join us. For our first question that I'm going to open to Kaysie to respond to is, why did you choose the Rutgers School of Social Work to pursue your MSW degree?
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you for that introduction as well. So I actually chose the School of Social Work, Rutgers School of Social Work, MSW, because I was actually a BSW student, and it just seemed logical to do the advanced standing program and get my master's degree in 1 year. And so that's what made me choose to go stay with Rutgers and get my MSW.
Thank you, Janice.
Hi, so I chose Rutgers. Before I entered Rutgers, I had a master's of public administration, and I was doing a lot of case management, and it was a good segue into social work. And so I was looking for an online program, and Rutgers had just advertised that they were doing it online. And so like you said, I was the first cohort.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
A big thing for me was the convenience of the location. At the time, I was living in Hudson County, originally from Bayonne. So the convenience, the location close to home, the name, right? Who doesn't know Rutgers? And then actually starting to explore the programs, going to various open houses. Really, Rutgers was the one that impressed me the most, seemed the most thorough, and had a lot of really supportive professors. Even just showing up at the open house, I could feel the difference between your program and other programs.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all of you. How do you feel that the program or the school helped prepare you for your career? And Janice, can you start us off this time?
Absolutely. I think Rutgers more than prepared my cohort to work in the field. Even though we were remote, I feel like we had an equitable access to the university as far as field placement, as far as the curriculum, the classes. We were able to connect with our classmates, even though we were not face-to-face or in person. So that really prepared us. Process recordings. I'm now field liaison for Rutgers, and so I'm able to give back in that sense to upcoming students, MSW students, and guide them through the process like someone did for me. So yes, more than prepared.
Yeah, and that is very common. We have many of our graduates or alums are field instructors all throughout the state, and now all throughout, different states as well. It is exciting, and we do talk a lot about giving back. And so we hope that all of our current students also think about that as well. Thank you. Nicole?
So it's kind of hard to really pinpoint, what it was about the program that I felt prepared me. The professors, the teachers that I had, the instructors, really bringing a lot of their knowledge, their skill, their personal experience, personal anecdotes, stories of working with various populations, especially when I started my internship, because it could be a little intimidating. You're kind of thrust into the field. I feel sometimes that you come in and your intern supervisors have this assumption that, well, you're in school, like it's time to get to work. And it could be really intimidating. So for me, I think it was, again, like the support from the staff, the professors, and just them being honest and saying this is a process and you're not going to be great at it right away. Maybe not with even the first year or two after you graduate, you're not going to feel comfortable, and imposter syndrome is real. So it helped to normalize that for me. So even as I graduated and was in the field and was having those experiences and those feelings, knowing that it was normal, that I can be confident, that I am doing a good job. And I feel like it really helped to set me up for success.
Great, thank you. Kaysie?
Yes, I would have to agree with Johnice and Nicole and about having the right professors in the program to really help and coach you and support you along. Also with the field placement as well. I really felt like that was a crucial piece as a part of the MSW program and also the BSW program as well. It really helps you get a sense for what the field is going to be like and what your work could be like if this is something that you want to go into, or is that the right place in social work you want to be in? And so I really felt like the field placement was really crucial. And then also my classmates as well in my cohort.
Great, thank you. As we move on to our next question, and Nicole, if you can get us started with this one. As you reflect on your time in the program, what advice do you have for new and incoming students? And even continuing students?
So many things. Definitely taking care of yourself and really practicing self-care. I think that it is a buzzword. It is something that is emphasized, but it's really hard to actually put into practice. And then you sort of notice, even as you become a practitioner and you're in the field, again, it's something that you're telling other people to do, but you might not practice on your own, because it can be very overwhelming, especially when you're going, full-time. Even if you're a part-time student, we all have lives. School, work, our field placement, our families. And I really, hats off to anybody that's been doing this during the pandemic and had to have that shift of going in person to virtual. I don't know how I would have handled that. So I think self-care is definitely a really important part of it. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you're also not going to create quality work if you're feeling burnt out and stressed. Again, relying on the supports that are around you, remembering that the school is trying their best to set you up for success. So if you're having a hard time, that there are places that you can reach out. One thing that was really tremendously helpful for me, and I guess just a shout out to the counseling department at the Rutgers Newark campus, I started seeing a therapist my second year of grad school, and I saw her from September to June. And she was a social worker. She was helping me process some of my personal stuff, and then also helping me process some school related craziness that I had going on. So again, just tapping into the resources that are around you if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Kaysie?
I would say, along with what Nicole said with self-care, time management is everything. As many of you already probably know who have been in undergraduates, but even in the master's program, especially someone who was in the advanced standing program, time management became very important, considering the amount of work and not only the stress. And you're not only trying to juggle your classes, but you're also trying to juggle a field placement, not to mention that you already have you have a life to live as well. If you have children or if you work another job, it really can get difficult. But again, to rely on your supports, I really relied on my cohort mates, and also the conversations that I've had with I had an outside field supervisor, so they actually made sure that I had a self-care plan in place as well, because of the amount of the load I was carrying. And then just making sure that, your supports are there in your cohort and outside of your cohort as well. I really feel like that makes a difference to help you.
Thank you. Janiece?
I just want to piggyback and just say field placement does not last forever. Going into that, you have to alter your lives, your work schedule. Me personally, I had to not work my full-time job and find contract work to make it through that period of my time, because I had bills, I had a mortgage. So that was, sometimes a determining factor, and people are going to go on into this field knowing that, you have to set some time, 2 years aside to do field placement. So it doesn't last forever. We'll pick back up where you left off, as far as you probably will be further ahead once you get that degree. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. I want to just pause for a second, because Nicole, you're right. I think that self-care is a buzzword, and we talk a lot about it, and you'll have professors bring it up, advisors will bring it up, field instructors will bring it up, friends, family, everyone, right? You might not say self-care, but how is it, how do you actually able to do it, right? I meet with students regularly that say, I just don't have time. I don't have time to like take a walk. I don't have time to, you know, watch that movie or, you know, hang out, have dinner with a friend, whatever it is that practice self-care. So first, I'd like you to tell me what you did for self-care, if you feel comfortable sharing, each of you, and if you don't, that's okay. How you practice self-care, what that actually meant while you were a student, and how did you find the time?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't easy. And there were some times that I didn't, you know, so I will be honest with that, there were times that it was a struggle. But like I said, you know, I think we all come into this field with stuff, right? And I think we all come here for a reason. And at least for me personally, a lot of my stuff started to come up, especially as I took my clinical classes. So again, finding a place to put all of that. And for me, it was having that counseling that was free, available, very flexible. So that was number one, consistently, religiously, I went to see her. Finding the time and really prioritizing, you know, and I hate to use the word sacrifice, but there's, you know, what are some things that, you know what, I can't put as much energy over here because it needs to go over here. And that's a thought that I had with school. I always felt like everything had to be absolutely perfect. And I was so obsessed with keeping my GPA high and maintaining a high standard, where sometimes I had to remind myself, look, I'm doing the best that I can. And this is quality work, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So do I proofread this paper 10 times because I'm so anxious about it being perfect? Or do I proofread it twice, maybe ask someone else to help me, and then, right, like stretch for 5 minutes, go for a walk, pet my dog, call a friend, you know, really trying to find and create that time and prioritizing yourself. And it may mean, you know, okay, this isn't going to be as perfect as I want it or think it should be, but it's still good work. And I'm still giving it my best efforts. And food, food was always really helpful for me. I don't think McGovern's is there anymore, but kind of creating this ritual of like, okay, we finished our internships. We're all going to meet at 5 o'clock, have some food, have some laughs, and then go to class at 6 o'clock. So again, like, you know, like Kaysie's saying, relying on the people that are around you, your cohorts, your peers, and remembering that you're all going through it together, and there's strength in numbers. You're not doing it alone.
Thank you. Kaysie, Johnice, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you feel comfortable sharing anything, please, by all means, unmute yourself.
I do value self-care as well. As social workers, we typically use all the hours of the day. So I get up at 5 and I do my workout. I have an almost 2-year-old, should be 2 in a week. So that's a challenge, and a spouse and juggling everything. So setting that time aside and being intentional with it. Even you have to put it on the calendar and let people know that at this time, this is my quiet time. This is time for me to regroup and get myself together, because it'll benefit everyone around you if you have taken care of yourself, and you're going to be the best version of yourself. So I agree with Nicole. Self-care is important.
Yeah, I want to just piggyback on what Johnice said about being intentional with that, with your self-care plan, because it really is, self-care is really, it's a skill. It's a learned skill. You have to learn it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But for me, I do set that time in the morning where I go and work out. And then also in the evening time, I set time aside where, I can just have peace and quiet before I get ready to either go to bed. I also do see a therapist as well. So, making sure that you are taking care of yourself, because we can't help others if we are not good within ourselves.
Thank you. I appreciate all your reflections on that. So can you share with us an aha or a lesson you learned, a moment that kind of like resonated with you during your time in the program that you can share with us? Janiece, can you start with this one?
I will go back to what Nicole was saying, not being perfect all the time. I was striving to get all A's, 4.0, because that's what I expected of myself, and that's what I thought others expected of me. At the end of the day, once you receive your degree, no one ever asks you what your GPA was. No one. So keep that in mind. I was in a psychopathology class, and as you know, if you go to one clinician and you go to another clinician, you go to another clinician, you may come up with 3 separate diagnoses, and it is what it is. And so no one person knows it all. No one person is exact. Just like if you go to a physician, you know, they're asking you more questions to try to figure out what your diagnosis is. So just keeping that in mind, that we're all human, and we're just doing the best that we can with what we have, and just give yourself grace. That's been my thing since I've been an MSW student, and even now through this global pandemic, just give yourself grace through your studies and through it all.
Thank you. Nicole?
I think for me I'm passionate about yoga. It's something I've been practicing for over 10 years, and I, value it as a therapeutic modality. It was something that I was really interested in school, and it's something that I remain interested in. And really, I bring it back again to the professors and the faculty, because they knew when professors knew that was what I was interested in and that's what I wanted to research and study, then that's what they let me do. And I could modify whatever paper that I was working on to incorporate that somehow. And it really helped me grow into my authentic self as a social worker. Not what should I be? What is the mold of the profession, and how, how should I be practicing? What should I look like when I graduate? So for me, the aha moment was realizing that the more I tapped into what I was already interested in and felt authentic for me, the better of a student and a social worker I became. Because it really, the field is about being your authentic self and connecting with people, and people can tell when you're not being genuine. They can see right through it, and they're not going to want to work with you. So that was really the aha moment for me. The more that I was me and showed up as my authentic self in these settings, the better my experiences were in class and in my field as well, my field internship.
Thank you. Kaysie?
Yeah, I think for me, and this is something that I've carried with me, because I had some of the same professors in the MSW program as I did in the BSW program. And so it's 2 things that kind of still sit with me till this day, and I carry them with me and through my work. Is one, I remember one of my professors speaking at an event that we were at, and he had said, like, if you aren't willing to be inconvenienced, how are you going to help inconvenience people? And that is what social work is. We are helping in people that are inconvenienced. And so we sometimes have to put ourselves aside to be able to open up and to be able to be the support to the people that we are helping. And then the other thing that I always carry with me and I live by is the social work principles. We were taught those in the BSW program and in MSW program, and they are principles that I live with every single day and I bring to my work every single day. I have left jobs because of social workers who have MSWs, but did not abide by those social work principles. And so I have left those, and when people have asked me why, and during one of my exit interviews, they had asked, like, why am I leaving? And I said, because I cannot work for social workers who do not abide by those principles. And so I carry those with me every day because they are very important and they really go towards the work that we are doing and trying to help the people and serve the people that we are supposed to be helping.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's really powerful and very important. So thank you. I'm actually going to go right to our last question. And so for all the attendees, feel free to go to the Q&A and type questions you have there. Because after we go through this question, then I will hop there and see what's on your minds. So if you could each share with me when and why you applied for your LSW, the Licensed Social Work Certification licensure, and what that process was like for you. And then if you are working toward or have an LCSW, you can add that in part of your response to tell us about that experience. I forgot where we were, but Nicole, are you okay with starting this one?
Yeah, no problem. So again, this kind of ties back into one of my previous answers about not setting such high expectations for yourself and kind of giving yourself a break. I remember the second year of my program, especially the second semester, people were already taking the exam in February, in March, you know, so that way when they had their degree in hand, they were ready to go and they were licensed. And at the time I was like, again, where are you finding the time to study for this exam when we're already studying for everything else? So I waited, you know, I waited until we graduated. I took my exam July of 2016. By the grace of God, I passed. And just for anybody's out there, if you fail it, it doesn't mean that you're not a good social worker. It doesn't mean that you don't understand the field or the material, because I know people who were excellent social workers who had to take it several times. So don't sweat it. So I took it that summer after I graduated. I passed. And for me, the motivation was like, that was you know, part of the crown jewel, so to speak. You know, like the goal was to get my master's degree and then the licensure, to really feel like I've achieved this goal. I am a professional social worker now. And also just kind of, in all honesty, most jobs want it. So it is something that you, in a lot of places, you do have to have the license in order to get a job that you want. And then for the LCSW, I got all of my hours while working in a residential setting. I was working in a residential group home for teenagers. So for anyone looking for jobs out there, that's one thing that I would suggest is like a residential setting. It's not easy. You will have days where you're like, again, do I belong here? Am I doing this right? You know, but it's definitely a setting that will test your skills, that will build your skills, and that will help you get your hours. It took me 3 years to get mine. And I took my LCSW exam in February of 2020, just before the pandemic. Again, I really think I had spirituality on my side, and had some issues with applying for the licensure because right around the time the pandemic was starting, I had sent my application out, and finally got my LCSW in January of this year. So again, yeah, that would be like my feedback or suggestions, is trying to find a job where you're going to get a lot of clinical hours, somewhere where supervision is free would be ideal, but somewhere where you're going to get good supervision and support, not just as a social worker and as a professional, but as a human being, because it's not easy work. And I know there's a lot of issues currently with the Board of Social Workers. You know, some people may be aware, a lot of challenges with applying for the exam, but just stay patient. The NASW is looking us out and they're helping to advocate. So really just taking a deep breath, not getting so hung up on the exam, and just having faith in yourself that you're going to pass. And if you don't, it's not a reflection of your skills and abilities.
So just really quickly, for anyone that's new or unfamiliar, what is NASW?
That's the National Association of Social Workers. So it's a national organization, and then it has local chapters. So there's a chapter for each state and then one for each county. A great place to go for resources, support, free or reduced trainings. It's really, and they have student rates. So if you're not already part of it, you should give it a look, you know, check it out and join with the student rate.
Are you getting paid for this advertisement? I'm just kidding.
No, they've just been so helpful.
Very proud. No, I know. They'd be so proud. And here at the School of Social Work, we collaborate with them often for events, for advocacy. But you're absolutely right, Nicole. They are advocating around this licensure issue very, very strongly, and asking schools to partner with them as well. So thank you. Kaysie?
So I actually do not have my LSW. I am actually a management and policy social worker. So I work in the administration. And that's not to say that those of you who are looking to go into policy and administration that you shouldn't get your LSW, but I just chose not to because of the work that I was doing, although I do weave in and out of direct practice here and there.
Yeah, so we do see that in a lot of the jobs that are for management policy track students. They don't require an LSW, but nonetheless, as you're pointing out, Kaysie, it is good, it's something you can still pursue as well. But thank you. Janiece?
All right, so I am licensed. I have in South Carolina, it's a LMSW, and I did that before I graduated. So we were able to apply because everybody was, talking about Don Apgar. And so we needed to get this book and we needed to study and get it done. So I did get it done. I did, like Nicole said, by the grace of God, I passed on the first try for the licensure. So then I proceeded forward. I was going to do some contract work. And they said, oh, if you're going to do contract work, you need an independent licensure. And I was like, oh, but I don't know. It was just contract work for, side money. So that jump started my path down becoming independent licensure. So in South Carolina, it's LISWCP. So it's a licensed independent social worker with clinical practice. So I was not, and I recommend you do what Nicole did, because I was not working somewhere where there was an LMSW or a supervisor on staff that had a social work degree. So I went to Facebook using my resources and found a group of clinicians who were licensed to be supervisors. So I found someone in the upstate of South Carolina, and I went twice a month for 4 hours. This is pre-baby, so please do it before you have your children if you can. And I drove 2 hours to get that supervision. I finished up right before I had my daughter in 2019, and I am ready to sit for the exam. And I will be full transparent. I've taken the exam. I failed it by 9 points. I went home and cried. So I'm gearing up to take it again. You have to wait 90 days in between. In South Carolina, I'm not sure how it works everywhere else. 90 days in between retaking the exam. Here it is $260, so it is an investment in your time. So I plan to knock it out of the park next go round.
Thank you. Best of luck to you in doing that. Thank you for sharing your journey. So we do have some questions that are coming up in the chat. The first is, was it difficult to find employment after graduation, specifically in the field that you wanted? Kaysie, can you start us off here?
Sure. For me personally, no, it wasn't difficult for me to find a career or employment in the field that I wanted, because I was already in the field, and I was just getting my degree to, be able to enhance my skills. And so it wasn't difficult for me.
Okay, Janiece?
I'll say likewise, it wasn't difficult for me as well. I started off at a rehabilitation center, and it just segued in. I was doing transition to school for students with disabilities. And so that segued into the school social work position. And this is my 5th year in school social work. So networking is going to be very valuable skill. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Nicole?
So I actually was an intern with Covenant House. And while I was still doing my internship there was an opening in one of their independent living facilities. So I did start working there as I was still an intern. So that, was a fortunate event for me. Then I stayed there for about a year after I graduated. And at that point, I had the experience with youth. So it was a little bit easier for me to go right into a position that was a residential treatment home, but was with youth, same age, same background, same sort of circumstances. I don't think that the job market is ever easy. You will have your interviews, you might get some denials or people who don't call you back. But again, it's not a reflection of you. It's just, as someone who is a hiring manager, it can be overwhelming to get a lot of resumes. But I'm a big believer of you will find a place that's a good fit for you. And I think Kaysie had mentioned earlier that she's left places because they just didn't match her level of integrity and who she wants to be as a social worker. So that's also really important. You don't want to sacrifice your own personal values just for the sake of finding a job, making sure you find somewhere that meets you where you're at and what's valuable to you.
Great, thank you. A little bit related to that, did you find that you had to specialize in the field to find employment? So for example, if you're interested in being a school social worker, did you have to only take classes in that area and only have that type of field placement, or like a geriatric social worker? What's your experience with that?
For me, right now I'm in school social work and I've been doing the last 5 years, but my internship placement was at Department of Mental Health and a group home with substance abuse. And then I did domestic violence. They were court ordered into treatment, and we did groups with those individuals, men and women. So I think you should use your MSW program to explore all your options, to figure out what it is that you want to do and what it is that you do not want to do. And you will quickly find that out in an internship. So I would definitely use that as an avenue to weed out things.
Yeah, I would have. Oh, sorry, Mary. Yeah, I had to agree with Johnice on that. When I started my social work career, I was in child welfare, and I'm still in child welfare now. But during not only my BSW program, but in my MSW program as well, I had 2 different types of internships outside of child welfare. I had worked with mothers who were on TANF during my BSW program, and then during my MSW program, I have actually worked with male offenders who in a halfway house, and I really appreciated those experiences because I actually did like doing those different types of social work and working with different populations. However, I just have a love for child welfare, so that's kind of where I still ended up in the long run.
Thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, I would say that I agree as well. Using classes and internships as an opportunity, like Jenny said, what are you passionate about and what are you certain, isn't for you, and going from there. And I think also talking to peers, what's your internship like? What's your experience? So even if you don't have the opportunity to take 5 or 6 different internships, because that's not realistic, just getting a sense from other people of, what's their experience like, how are they enjoying it? And also just remembering that no employer is going to expect you to be perfect. A lot of employers won't expect you to know exactly how to work in their facility with their population, knowing their rules and policies. So there will always be training available wherever you go. Again, there's no expectation for perfection, just to show up and try to do the best that you can.
Thank you. And just to add to that, I think also don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone. I remember being given an opportunity to work. I loved working with children. That was kind of what I thought was my passion, right? And then I had the opportunity to work with teenagers, and I was so against it. I said, absolutely not, no thank you. They were willing to give me a job. I said, no, I'm good. I'm gonna wait to, I'm gonna keep volunteering with the kids until something opens up. But I really had some amazing mentors that are like, you need to just try it. Like they just kept pushing me, and I loved it. I loved it more than I ever imagined I would. And so don't be afraid to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Don't be so fixated on this is what I have to do and this is the route I have to do to get there. Think outside the box a little bit, take chances. And the worst thing is that you'll learn what you don't like, but again, at least you can say I gave it an honest try. I didn't just, be closed-minded, not knowing what that experience would actually look like. So that's just something I'd like to add as well. One of the participants, Dave, is asking, did the program do any education specifically around how to responsibly care for folks with trauma and how to manage your own care through that work? So as we think about self-care and as we think about the burden we deal with as we work with others, which we call vicarious trauma, right? So how do you handle that, right? Working with clients, but then also taking care of yourself as well. Did the program prepare you for that in any way? And if so, how?
I feel like there were a few classes that I wound up taking during the MSW program that talked about vicarious trauma and, self-care and how to deal with that. I don't remember off the top of my head which ones those were, but I do know for a fact that we definitely talked about it. And so the best way I can say on how to prepare is to definitely talk to your supervisor that you are work at the job that you are working at, making sure that you are bringing up those conversations in supervision. And then I would also say, and as we've emphasized again throughout this entire webinar, is self-care is your number one best bet. And then also making sure that you have your own support system outside of working with your supervisor.
Thank you, Nicole or Janiece. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do remember taking a class, Survivors of Abuse and Trauma. I don't remember the professor's name, but she was really excellent. I actually saw her a few months after I graduated at trauma-informed yoga training. So that was kind of funny to run into her there. But I think as a society, we're moving towards a more trauma-focused or trauma-informed perspective and lens. I know in the school system that's happening a lot, and just in the different jobs I've had since I've graduated, really being more mindful of the impact of trauma on everyone, not just on the population that we serve. I think a lot of people tend to just kind of carry around and normalize their traumatic experiences. So that was always my experience, that it was something that was touched on a lot in classes and sort of normalized and reinforced. And then when you start having your internships and sitting with people who have experienced some sort of significant trauma, I mean, it is going to be uncomfortable for you to be hearing it and to be experiencing it with someone, especially as you're new to the field. Again, I'm more clinical, so that was my track. That wasn't management and policy, but processing it with your supervisor, processing it with your professor, again, going back to the self-care, noticing how that comes up for you, because I have a more somatic practice, being a yogi, I can recognize when things aren't quite right in my body and then responding to that. Do I need to stretch? Do I need to nap? Do I need to go for a walk? And just trying to give your body what it needs. But again, seeking out those supports, whether it's therapy, friends, a good meal, or a good walk, just taking care of yourself. And it starts by listening to your body.
Thank you.
I think compartmentalization is also going to be key. You can't take everything home with you that you collect on the job. So you're going to have to unpack it and pack it back up when you walk out the door. Part of my self-care, I have a work cell phone. I keep it on 24/7 as requested, but it is in the car after hours. So you're going to have to find boundaries. That's another tip that's going to help you make it within the program as an MSW student and also after graduation. Boundaries is going to be key, and prioritization and compartmentalization is also going to be your best tools in your toolbox.
And I also want to add to that supervision, right? It's so important to seek supervision, consultation, to have people, even when we have a lot of students and even graduates that are interested in like private practice, even people that are in private practice that like have an LCSW, that have that clinical licensure, they need people to be talking to about these things, right? To help them unpack some of these things, to help them process some of what they're hearing, because it will take an emotional toll if you don't have the proper supports to just discuss it with, to talk about it with. Obviously, with all the confidentiality and keeping clients' identities private and all of that. But thank you, Janiece. This question is actually specifically for you. Did you find it difficult to obtain licensing in a different state? I'm not sure if Rutgers licensing resources are geared towards New Jersey.
The resources that the Rutgers pushes out, I still receive the emails, and I do compare and contrast them to South Carolina, but the application process was smooth. If I had any questions, I could always reach back out to Rachel Schwartz, that team. They were very instrumental and helpful in the process, especially before my degree was conferred. I was able to apply for the licensure and sit for the test before everything was stamped and approved, but everything was smooth and it still continues to be so.
And just to add to that, we do provide workshops and preparation and information sessions around licensure that's open to all students, regardless of the program format you're in or the state you're in. If you're a Rutgers social work student, you have an ability to use all those resources that cut across states as well. So thank you for that. Dana is asking, how did you use the program to help you narrow down your career interests? She says she's someone that is not sure what I want to do, and the social work field seems so broad.
I think you should do it all. Like, I'm a school social worker and I come to the table with a background. I've done behavioral health, I've done vocational rehabilitation, I've done Department of Mental Health, I've worked with domestic violence. So when you come to the table in certain settings, you're going to be quote unquote the expert. I don't know it all, but I have a little pocket of everything. And through that, I was able to network. So when I don't have the answer, I have friends I can call who are on speed dial, who can be the expert that I need in the room and provide the resources that I need. So I say, try it all. Why not? Life's short.
Any other comments? Okay, we can move on. Okay. For a clinical path, how do you identify a good first clinical job and a good supportive supervisor while making sure you can pay your bills and loans immediately after graduating? So this is talking about the salary issue within the profession as we think about working towards that clinical licensure and that next stage.
I feel like this is a tricky one. I want to say, like, know your value and know your worth. In terms of finding, going on different interviews and making sure that you show up to these interviews with questions. I know that that's something that is suggested and is talked about all the time, but really, honestly, as someone who does hire, I appreciate when someone comes prepared, has a list of questions, and really wants to know the nitty-gritties of what this job is going to be about and what are the expectations of me. So I think being prepared in that sense, asking those questions about supervision, will it be provided? What is your style? Are there any specific intervention techniques that you folks utilize here? Will I get certified? Those are definitely good questions to ask about, like, what are the treatment modalities that are used there? And not being afraid to ask for a higher salary. Again, if you feel like you're worthy of it, I think that a lot of us feel in this field, and I don't want to generalize it and make it a sexist thing, but I think a lot of times for women, it can be difficult to try to negotiate for a higher salary, but at least give it a try. The worst that you'll be told is no. And, in terms of being able to pay your bills and your loans, know that there is the public service student loan forgiveness. So you can sign up for that if you join a nonprofit, and that you can consolidate your loans. Like, there are ways to make them more realistic in terms of payment opportunities. So don't feel like that's going to be such a huge burden on your life, because there are things available to help you pay them.
Thank you. Thank you. But also, we have to be realistic with what a lot of times, especially with small nonprofit, the salary is the salary, right? So sometimes there is negotiating opportunity, but then other times there isn't. But I think that, we have, for example, we've had a negotiation skills workshop for students the past few years. And the person that leads that always speaks about there's other things to negotiate, not just money, right? There's so much on the table that could be negotiated as you're looking for a job. So that's just a little, something to kind of keep you intrigued as you think about negotiation, but we'll be having more sessions around that as well throughout your time in the program. So we have a student who says that they would like to work with ADHD children and their families in the school setting, helping them understand how to support their children. What advice would you provide? I'm not sure of the question, Caroline, from Caroline, is that what advice would you provide to help you get into that field? I'm not 100% sure.
I'll just say, going into the school system, if you are fortunate to have many social workers on staff, then you can probably specialize. I'm fortunate, I am one of 3 social workers for 13,000 students. So I cannot do clinical work or interventions. I am social work 101, providing families to those resources. So if you want to get in the school district and help a specific population, that may be challenging to narrow that scope, because there's so many students and families who are in need, but there is an opportunity to help, most definitely. So for that population, you can help and provide those resources.
Thank you. One of the participants is asking, are there social work mentors that assist students navigate different area of emphasis? That's actually something to discuss with an advisor. And so all students are given an advisor, definitely utilize those individuals. I also tell students to speak with faculty and their part-time lecturers, like the adjuncts you have, because they have a lot of practice experience to hear about them. Field instructors, you can connect with everyone that you come in contact with. But in terms of formal mentorship, the Center for Career Exploration and Success at Rutgers, that's the career services, they have an opportunity through their portal that they use called Handshake, where they can actually link you with an alum. And so you can, if that's something you're interested in, I would encourage you to use that, that resource available through career services. As someone like a mentor, someone you can talk to about different things, that is also a social worker. So that's something to consider as well. One of the participants is asking, do you have any advice for students who will pursue the program part-time while working full-time? Did anybody here experience that?
I wanted to get in and get out, so no, I did not.
I will share. I actually was that student, my first semester working full-time and in school full-time. And it was very, very, very challenging. I think that you have to use the supports. So I had it depends on your situation, right? So not everything is the same. I was able to be creative with when I did my field hours because my employer was flexible. There's some situations employers are not flexible, so that makes it much more difficult. When I have a student that says my job demands me to be there 9 to 5, no flexibility, it might be a little bit more challenging than an employer that says, okay, just make up your work or come in the evenings or do your work on it. So it really depends. Not all employers are the same. So that's something to consider. And then I also had to really tap into my support system. I had to go to my parents. I had to go to my spouse. I had to go to my friends and really ask for help when I needed. I wasn't able to maybe like prepare meals like I wanted to, or do laundry as often as I wanted to.
Oh, I think she might have froze. Okay, we can take the next question. Okay. Okay, so, oh, she's back. Yes.
I'm really sorry. Internet is really bad here. I'm going to try to turn off my camera, but I'm going to be here. So I'm sorry to the panelists for having to turn off my camera right now. But I hope everyone heard what I said about asking your support systems for help and tapping into those systems. Okay. So I think we're almost there. Someone's asking about field placements, or how do you pick a field placement? Are you restricted to a list, or what is that process like? I'll let you, all of you answer that, and then I can comment. So Kaysie, would you like to say something about that process?
Sure. So normally your field placement is like chosen for you. Well, when you fill out the questionnaire form, once you do that, they kind of place you where they see best fit based on what you have told them of what you wanted to do. For my experience with field placement, I actually did my field placement at my current job. Or the current organization I was working for, it made it a lot easier for me because they allowed me to use part of my work hours to do my field placement hours. And it just was in a different area of the organization. It wasn't the actual job I was doing. It has to be in a different organization, or not in a different organization, in a different part of the organization, doing something different than what your current job is.
Great, thank you. And just to add to that, so it is a process. So you do include your interests on that field planning form, but the field office will have someone call you to hear about more about your interests and try to match you to a right internship. So you're not on your own. You're not there to figure it out on your own, but there is a process, and we have to make sure that it's an approved agency and that we have a contract with that agency. So that's why the field office is the one that figures all that out. And what Kaysie is referring to is what we call work study. So it's for students that are employed in a setting that has the opportunity for them to allow them to work in a different part of the agency under a different supervisor to complete their field experience. And so that's something you're interested in, that is a conversation you should have with the field office as well regarding work study. So thank you for that. Janiece or Nicole, do you have any comments about that, or we have one more question that came through? Okay.
I was cohort
So,
1. Oh,
go ahead.
I was cohort 1. So the type A person that I am, I gave them recommendations of what I wanted to do. And so I pretty much matched myself, and I was at my employer for the first one, and which, because it's hard to work and do field placement at the same time. So I was able to be in the same building, but take on a different role. And then for the second one, I actually had to leave my job and go to Department of Mental Health, because that was a full-time commitment, and it was difficult to juggle the two.
Thank you. So really quickly, Dave is asking about, does the Center for Career Exploration help you set up a private practice and figure that out? And so they will not do that, but Nicole mentioned NASW. And so I think in terms of professional organization, they do have one of the, I forget what they're called, like a smaller subsection is related to people that are in private practice. So this goes back to the point of networking, speaking to your circles, connecting with people, but definitely connecting with your professional organization is going to be important as you think about launching a private practice as well. So we are right at the almost 6 o'clock mark. So thank you all for being here with us. I appreciate your time. If each of you are comfortable sharing an email address, if you want people to reach out to you that way, if the participants have any additional questions, if you're okay, sending your contact information, please put that in the chat really quickly now. So we'll wait just a few more seconds before we log off. And I'll also go through the chat right now to see if I can answer any of the final questions that came through there. But Kaysie, Nicole, and Janiece, thank you all. It was wonderful to meet each of you and to hear about all that you've shared with us. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Feel free to hop off after you found your email there. Thanks.
All right, bye guys.
Bye. Karen, we can stop recording now.